It is Tuesday, which means it's brought to you by Greta, the home of our electric watch parties. Greta is Canucks Army's spot to catch the game throughout the season, playoffs, and also our place to chill in the off season. Our thanks to Greta for bringing us Jeff Paterson, who joins us now. Jeff Paterson of Rinkwide. We will bring him in moments. There he is, Jeff Paterson. Jeff, how you doing today?
Oh, the sun is shining. The Canucks are winning. You guys are in a new-looking studio. You got yourself a new co-host there, Dave. Life is good.
Great, we can't hear Jeff.
Jeff, do we got you?
I know. I had an incredible intro.
Oh, there you are.
It's the intro that's never going to be heard. I said the sun is shining. The Canucks are winning. You guys are in a new studio. Dave, you got a new partner. Well, life's pretty good these days.
Well, it was until Grady muted your mic.
But I'm also thinking, too, I look at all the props on the counter there. I should be in studio with you guys rather than in the home studio. I'll make that happen.
Should. Yeah, we got some crown here for you. Quickly,
if it's still around by the time.
Yeah, exactly. We were told to go buy a full one, so we will go do that very shortly, I'm sure. But Jeff, let's get right into it. No more wasting time on this show today. Your biggest surprise about the Canucks so far?
Oh, I mean, I knew that they could score goals. I don't think that I anticipated they were going to score at the rate that they're scoring. And when like there's just so many goofy statistics, and I love my numbers, and I've been pumping out a bunch and all over social. But there was the one tweet from that stats company, is it Optus Sports, that it was just like mic drop, that no team has scored through its first 12 games of the season like the Canucks have since the cup-winning Oilers back in their heyday. Like, get out of here. I need that fact check 3 or 4 times over because, like, I mean, yeah, okay, the 10 the other night in San Jose was fun, but 8 on opening night, 6 last night, 5 in the 5-0 win against the St. Louis Blues. Power play is just going off. It's converting at an outrageous rate right now. You guys are talking about depth scoring. Look, one of the storylines that I followed pretty closely last year was lowest scoring team in the NHL when it came to goals from defensemen. They had 22 all of last year. Well, driven by Quinn and his outrageous performance right now, they're tied for the league lead. So they've gone from dead last in the NHL in terms of goals from defensemen to the top of the heap for the time being. And we'll see if they can stay at that rate. I would imagine that Quinn is going to continue to score, but Philip Roenick hasn't scored yet. They've got a couple from Myers and a couple from Susie, but there are other guys that can contribute there. And look, Quinn Hughes got a huge bounce last night, but talk about a guy that deserved one for the way that he's playing. And that was such a big goal too. I mean, they were just getting crushed by the Oilers. Oilers opened the scoring, and then for Hughes to bank a shot in off Desharnais. I mean, Quinn's been picking his spots. I don't think that he picked that one. He certainly didn't call bank before he did it, but he got a bounce. They needed a bounce, and you could just kind of feel right then and there that the Oiler bench, Oiler Nation for that matter. Here we go again. Just the bad goal that goes in at an inopportune time. So, I mean, there's just a ton to like about the Vancouver Canucks, but I would just say that it's the way that they're scoring, the rate at which they're scoring, which certainly exceeds even my wildest expectations for this hockey club.
J-Pat, Brock Boeser had another couple of goals the other night. He has 6 goals against the Oilers, which is more goals than any Edmonton player has the entire season so far. Just looking at his game, I mean, even the other game against the Stars, I know he didn't score, but just looks so dangerous, very engaged physically even. What has impressed you most about what has impressed you most about his start, and why do you think he's been able to click so much here in the early going for the Canucks?
Well, Blake has started this running bit on Rinkwide, and that is a nightly update of Brock Boeser's goals compared to the San Jose Sharks team goals. And after last night, it was 10 for Boeser, and I think the Sharks are sitting at a dozen. So I said, is this going to be an ongoing thing? And he said, yeah, as long as it's close, we're going to keep it up. So just incredible to think that not even a full month into the season, because they started on October 11th, and Boeser's already into double digits. He's among the league leaders. I think there's a couple of factors. I mean, that line is playing so well, and JT Miller, he had in the 99-point season a couple of years ago. I think that pales in comparison to how well he is playing right now, and he leads that line, and the other guys are following in his footsteps. And we've seen the shot, obviously, a couple of quick snapshot snipes, including opening night against the Oilers, and then the one-timer the other night in San Jose. So he looks confident. But Harm, I really do think that, and he stated it at the outset of the season, this is a guy that lost his father, went through the turmoil of the trade requests and his agent getting involved. And, that had to be a blow to the ego when you got your agent doing your bidding and still no takers, more because of the contract than the player himself. But he said at the start of training camp, I'm at peace. I'm going to continue to grieve my father, but I'm at peace with the fact that we've lost him and he's not coming back, obviously. And since he said that, he's looked that part as well. Like he looks relaxed. He looks like he's having fun. I mean, it was around this time last year that his ineffectiveness led to that near healthy scratch on the Hockey Fights cancer night. Like those were the kinds of distractions that were swirling around him for much of last season. The guy had 5 goals at Christmas time. He's at 10, and we're barely into the month of November. Like it really is night and day. And I do think so much of it is he's just decided to come to peace with. He knows he can be an effective player. He can still be a scorer in the National Hockey League. He may not be a 40-goal scorer, although the way he's going right now, maybe I don't rule it out. But, the 30 is that number that has just been there and plastered to him for so long. And I know he didn't want to put numbers on it. But, guys, you do some simple hockey math. He's got 10 goals, 12 games into the season. He needs to be a 20-goal scorer over the final 72. And 72 is kind of around the number of games that he generally plays in a season with injuries. So he's got to stay healthy, knock on wood for him there. But I mean, he has absolutely set himself up to be a 30-goal scorer, a 30-plus goal scorer for the first time in his NHL career, the way that the Canucks are going and his role on the power play. At the outset of the year, I wasn't even sure that he, as a right shot guy, I just didn't know if there was a fit there. You had Kuzmenko, who's already a right shot guy. We know how successful Horvat was in the bumper as a lefty. I didn't know where Brock's role on the power play was going to be, but again, last night, and I think he's up to 5 power play goals. I think he and Kreider are tied for the NHL lead in power play goals. So it is just, these are heady times when you go to the NHL stats page and there is a Canuck leading just about every conceivable category, including Brock Boeser. This is wild stuff.
You heard the clip. Tyler Myers getting some love from Rick Tocchet last night. Your thoughts on his game and especially that quote from Rick Tocchet last night?
Are we sure that wasn't a setup by Faber? Who was talking about Tyler Myers last night? But Rick Tocchet seemed pretty happy to, quite frankly.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great theory.
And he's not wrong. Yeah, first day on the job for Faber.
Whisper in his ear. Make sure you ask about Tyler Myers.
No. We're just having fun with that one. But I will say, the coach isn't wrong. Tyler Myers, like everybody else in this team, is just in a groove right now. And I'm telling you two guys right here, right now, if you could promise me, get it written in stone, that Tyler Myers and Carson Soucy would be the third pair for the remainder of the season, that neither one of them would play higher in the lineup. If they could just stay and sort of play at their level as a third pair, I think he'd sign up for that. Look, we said that about Carson Soucy, a couple of really solid seasons as a third pair guy in Seattle. Is there more there? Still not sure. But as a third pairing guy, he absolutely has proven that he can excel in that role. And they're giants, 6'5" and 6'7", and the reach and the disruptive nature at the blue line and denying entries and those types of things. Those two guys are playing within themselves right now. So going out on the road, it's going to be a little different. You can't shelter your third pair. And if that's your third pair, it does expose. And I'm right at the front of the list with, some love for Ian Cole. I think he's been an absolutely outstanding addition. But Cole and Mark Friedman, and Friedman's been a nice pickup too. But, if that's your second pair, I mean, really what you're doing is you're loading up for the most part with Hughes and Hronek, and then you kind of got 2 third pairs behind them, and the Canucks are getting by with this. I scoffed at the defense by committee, but 12 games in, there's nothing to scoff at, really, especially when you have Thatcher Demko behind them, mopping up whatever mistakes are being made.
J-Pat, big picture, when you look at the Canucks' start, and there are so many sort of obviously positives to pull at, what role do you think Rick Tocchet has had in all of this? Obviously, he's been massive, but if you were to sort of point to 1 or 2 specific areas where you really think that the coach has had an impact in getting a lot out of these players, what would you look at?
Well, I want to extend it past the coach, and I'm not trying to skirt your question, Harm, but I am just blown away right now about organizational buy-in. And we saw it on Saturday morning, and I was struck by this on Saturday. We saw it again Monday morning at the morning skate. Talkett's talked about the fact he's not a huge morning skate guy, and yet everybody's out there right now. Like there's just this buy-in. Like they all want to be around the rink. And forget about the players. It's the fact that they've got 8 coaches on the ice. It's Tocchet, it's Foote, it's Yo. Gonchar's in town these days. You got Daniel and Henrik. You have Yogi Savkovsky, the skills coach that Rick Tocchet really seems to value his input into the way things are going. And then Ian Clark is the goaltending coach as well. So kind of looks like a football team right now with the number of coaches. But I think that maybe hockey was slow on the uptake in that regard in having that many minds. And so I did some math because Pia Suter the other day was asked about it. And he said, it's like every guy's got 1,000 games. Well, they've got 3 guys who have 1,300 NHL games on the coaching staff and 2 more who've played over 1,100. And Svejkovsky, I don't even know if people know his background, but he played in Washington for I think he's 115 games or something like that. Anyways, you total it up, there's 6,000 games of NHL experience out on the ice. Like, and you've got the Twins, obviously, Hall of Famers, and Tocchet's talking about the work that they've done on and off the ice. You got Adam Foote, this hard rock defenseman with Stanley Cup pedigree. You got Tocchet, and we know the way that he played the game. Like they seem to have somebody that can answer just about any question that anybody on this team in whatever role they play. And so I think the coaching staff's done a terrific job. I liked last night, like the Oilers, the chess match. They tried to double shift McDavid at times in that first period, and so they couldn't always have JT Miller out there. So we saw them split Hughes and Hronek really and try to, extend the depth that they've got on their defense. I just think Rick Tocchet, the way he's handled his goaltending, again, I mean, the team is ultimately the ones that get the job done, but it's the coaching staff that lays the blueprint out there. And we know how much he values wall work and heavy presence and all that kind of stuff. But this coaching staff really, just about every button that they have pushed, save for that game in Philadelphia, and who knows what happened that night. But otherwise, I mean, they have looked good just about every night out. And so I do think that the coaching staff deserves a fair bit of credit in this start to the season.
We briefly chatted about him before you hopped on, but Nils Höglander, that's a guy that's been coached by the Sedins. Like we were talking about the video work. Tocchet's brought it up a few times. What have you made of his game lately? And I'll pivot that into another question about who's the guy that comes out when Teddy Bluger eventually returns, because I think maybe a month ago, we all would have assumed it would be Nils Höglander. Probably if Bluger's healthy to start the season, it probably is Höglander. But where does that all stand now for you?
Love it. Love to see Nils Höglander playing the way that he is. The goals are almost gravy, but he's matched his goal total for, last year was such a disappointing year for him, just the 25 NHL games. He scored 3 times, but he's at 3 now. I loved that sequence last night. Lafferty with his speed, Höglander, the trailer, and he just buried that. There was no way that he was going to miss his mark there, and you could see the celebration, and it was a big goal because you were talking about, the Draisaitl goal was moldy, but it counted ultimately, and it gave the Oilers some life, and they're back in a 1-goal game, and then the Canucks able to extend the lead on the Höglander goal. So the goal is great, but just that's Nils Höglander. That's what he's got to do. It reminds me of rookie Nils Höglander in the COVID season where, winning just about every battle. I think some guys still look at him and maybe take him for granted, like opponents, and think, oh, this is going to be an easy one-on-one. There's no easy one-on-ones when Nils Höglander is playing and his motor's going the way that it is, and then he can back it up with the offense. So like a lot of what I'm seeing, and it feels to me like, okay, so Dakota Joshua was made a healthy scratch the other night. I thought he responded with a nice game against Dallas, had an assist on what turned out to be the winner. He had 7 hits. And again, the nice play last night to Suter. Internal competition is a good thing. And I think these guys recognize, and Teddy Bluger was on the ice with the group for the first time at the morning skate on Monday. So they know he's getting close. And it does look like that's reflected in the play. None of them want to be the guy. To answer your question, none of them want to be the guy that comes out. I think Studnicka goes back to the minors, but somebody will have to come out of this lineup. And I think Beauvillier has picked up his play. Garland is interesting to me because you guys were talking about him, and I thought he was terrific last night. But it's just mind-blowing with Connor Garland, and we've seen this in each of the first 2 years that he's been a Canuck. For a guy that he doesn't kill penalties, he's not overly physical. I mean, he is supposed to be a guy that produces offense. He scored the first goal of the season, guys, in that 8-1 romp against the Oilers. and hasn't scored since. Now, his underlying numbers are good. He's not hurting this team at all, but I can't remember a guy who, being paid what he's paid, but also with the offensive profile. And I know he's playing a little lower in the lineup, but a guy that goes these double-digit stretches without a goal. And maybe he's just unlucky and maybe he deserves a bounce for how hard he's working. But we've seen it far too often over 2 seasons with Garland that he scores and then he'll go 10, 15. I think there was a stretch of 20 last year for a guy that, shoots the puck from all angles and sometimes you'd think would catch a goalie off guard. So I'm not concerned about Garland, but the goal streak, it's just, he opened the scoring on that alley-oop goal from Paterson on opening night and hasn't scored since. But those are the decisions that coaches love to have, right? Tough decisions, because like if it was easy, it would tell you that there was an obvious choice and that the coaches would just point at that guy and he'd come out of the lineup. But it feels like they're all sort of sensing the return of Teddy Bluger and everybody's up in their game. And so top of the lineup, the stars are going, the goaltenders are going. We talked about the defense, and that bottom 6 right now seems to have hit its stride as well. So they're a well-oiled machine the way that they're playing, and it is going to be a difficult decision for the coaching staff. So, we'll see if they stay healthy. That could impact and change the conversation, I suppose. But I would think that Bluger is probably a week away. I don't know if we're going to see him on this road trip. Talked about how he needed a couple legitimate practices, and yesterday was a morning skate. So 3 and 4 out on the road. I don't know how much practice time they're ultimately going to have there. But certainly by the end of this month, and I would say sooner than that, we're going to see Teddy Bluger. So we'll get the answer.
Jeff, great stuff as always, my friend. Thank you for taking the time today.
All right, boys. It's always fun. Thanks.